Have you ever had that sinking feeling when you collapse into bed after a nonstop day, completely exhausted, and then the thought hits you, what did I actually accomplish today? Your calendar was packed, your fingers never stopped typing, you barely had time to eat, and yet your most important work still sitting there untouched. I hit this wall for myself about 2 years ago. I was putting in 12 plus hours a day, constantly busy, yet watching my goals drift further and further away. And that's when I realized being busy and being productive are completely different games. The truth is, your time isn't just being wasted, it's being stolen by hidden productivity traps that feel like important work but actually keep you running in place. These time thieves operate in plain sight, disguised as responsibility and dedication, but they're sabotaging your progress every day. Today, I'm exposing the biggest productivity mistakes that high achievers make, the exact traps I fell into, and I plan on showing you how to eliminate them for good. Because once you recognize these patterns, everything changes. Let's dive in. Let's talk about something I call fake productivity. This is when you're doing a lot of stuff, a lot of nothing, you're super busy, but you're not actually moving forward on anything meaningful. Here's what fake productivity looks like in real life. You spend your entire morning answering emails instead of working on that big project that would actually move your career forward. You sit in back to back meetings where nothing gets decided and you're thinking this could have been an email. I think we've all been there, right? On my personal favorite, you rewrite your to-do list 10 different times. You color code it, you make it pretty, but don't actually cross off anything. It's so easy to trick ourselves into thinking that staying busy means being productive. Now check this out. Productivity isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters. I had this realization a few years ago when I looked back at a particularly busy month and couldn't point to a single significant thing I'd accomplished. I was working constantly but focusing on the wrong things. So here's a simple question I started asking myself before every task. Is this moving me closer to my goal? If the answer is no, I either cut it, you got to cut it. I either cut it, delegate it, or schedule it for later. Now let's talk about the hidden distractions that are destroying your focus without you even realizing it. Yes, we all know social media is a time waster. That's obvious. But the real silent killer of productivity, task switching. Every time you stop what you're doing to check a notification, answer a quick email, or jump between different tasks, you're not just losing those precious few seconds. Research shows it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus after switching tasks. Think about that. If you check your phone just 5 times during a workday, that's potentially 2 hours of lost focus time. 2 hours. I didn't believe this until I tracked myself for a week. I was shocked to discover I was switching tasks roughly every 12 minutes, so no wonder I wasn't getting anything meaningful done. So the fix, it's called time blocking. Instead of jumping between tasks all day, set specific times for different types of work. A perfect example could be in the morning. This is when most people have their peak mental energy. Use it for 90 minutes of deep, focused work with no distractions. In the midday, use this time for emails, calls, and administrative tasks, the stuff that needs to get done but doesn't require your best thinking. And in the afternoon, depending on your energy levels, use this for creative work, strategic thinking, or collaboration. Are you ready to talk about working smarter, not harder? Because who actually wants to work more hours if we don't have to? There's a principle called the 80-20 rule, and it basically says that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. This rule shows up everywhere once you start looking for it. Think about your work or personal projects right now. I bet there are a few key activities that drive most of your success, while the rest is just stuff you do. In my case, I realized that about 80% of my career growth came from just 3 activities: building relationships with key decision makers, developing specific technical skills, and volunteering for high visibility projects. Everything else was just maintenance. So here's the challenge. Identify your high impact activities, the 20% of work that brings 80% of your results, and double down on those. Cut or minimize everything else. This doesn't mean you can ignore the other 80% completely. You still need to answer emails and attend some meetings, but it does mean you should be ruthless about protecting time for your high impact work. Remember, you don't need to do everything. You just need to do the right things. So yet another time waster that's tricky because it feels so productive. Over planning. Don't get me wrong, planning is important, but there's a point where planning becomes procrastination in disguise. I call it the planning paradox. The more time you spend planning something, the less time you actually spend doing it. Now, I see this all the time with people who want to start a side project or learn a new skill or make a career change. They spend weeks researching, planning, and preparing, but never actually start. To be honest, in the past, I suffer from this a lot. In fear of not putting my best foot forward in a project, I tried every way possible to be perfect. Regrettably, I did more planning than actually doing because I wanted things to be perfect. And this actually happens a lot with aspiring YouTubers who relentlessly take down notes, watch videos, and go down a rabbit hole or two to get ideas about planning their own channel, only to never, ever go through with creating the channel. Now, have you ever spent more time planning than actually doing? What's one thing you've been over planning but haven't yet started? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments. Now, hear me when I say this. Perfection is the enemy of done. At some point, you have to put the planning tools down and take action. Here's a better approach. Plan just enough to get started, then adjust as you go. Give yourself permission to learn through doing, not just through planning. For example, instead of planning out an entire course before you start learning something new, just plan the first week. See how it goes, adjust, and then plan the next step. This action-first approach will save you countless hours and actually get you to your goals faster. That goes out to the YouTubers who are into creating classes or courses. This action-first approach will save you countless hours and actually get you to your goals faster. So let's wrap this up. If you want to take back control of your time and actually make progress on what matters, first you have to stop confusing busy work with real work. Ask yourself, is this moving me closer to my goal? Then eliminate task switching and use time blocking to protect your focus. Then you have to identify your high impact tasks, the 20% that drives 80% of your results, and prioritize those. And remember that at some point, you have to stop planning and start doing. If it's that YouTube channel that you've always planned but failed to execute, the time is now. That nonprofit, what's holding you back? That book that you've been writing off and on for years, let's get it. Time is the one resource you can never get back. So be intentional about how you use it. Now, I want to hear from you. What's one time waster you're going to eliminate this week? Drop it in the comments below. And if this video gave you something to think about, hit that like button so more people can see it. Your engagement helps this channel reach more people who might need to hear this message. Next week, we're diving into hidden career growth opportunities that most people